This call is now being
This is
recorded.
Global Tel-Link. You have a prepaid call from
Jesse NAVA.
an inmate at the Centinela State Prison, Centinela, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel-Link.
Hello,
Hello.
Jesse.
Hello. What's going on?
All right, give me one moment. I forgot to fix one thing before we went live. What's your CDC number?
G03933.
You said G03933.
Yep.
Okay, I should know it by now. Let me see. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Then thank you for calling me up, Jesse. So we're gonna go ahead and continue where we left off last time, where you were in, I guess the transitional housing unit.
Yep.
I'm not. I don't know.
I was. I believe we had left off where initially I was electing to drop out prior to actually going to, or we might have gotten to the part where I was in transitional housing, but I transferred over back to Corcoran Shoe for what's called the DPU, that's the debrief process unit, and because when you're validated, you can't just drop out and just go SNY because you're validated, so they have to ensure that you're not going SNY to basically harm other people, you know? They make you go through a whole vetting process, the debrief process, and so like a little step-down program, and first phase is DPU, second phase is transitional housing. So I'm not sure exactly if we had gotten to that part yet. Do you remember?
No, we had not. I think we our last call. That's kind of where we just kind of left it off at. We left it at a cliffhanger.
Okay, yeah. So basically, they had come. I had come to the realization that there wasn't nothing that I was gonna do to try to fix my situation. I had overplayed my hand, and basically they weren't gonna give me the option to go back to the yard and figure it out. Which, looking back, was kind of silly because I know a lot of dudes that have tried to go back and fix their situation when they know it was irreparable and end up getting murdered or whatever, but when you live in that life, it seems like that's the only option you have, and for me it was self-preservation, I'm not going to lie, some people might call it scary, some people might call it being a coward, those who know me, I've been whacked before, I've been through I've been in numerous power struggles, I've been through a lot of shit, doesn't make me any tougher than the next person, but it wasn't like I said, it doesn't matter the reasoning behind it. I know I've watched many dudes that I know that were bona fide gangsters walk off the tier, and as soon as they're gone, we're all talking shit. Fucking PC, this, that. Like we got nothing to say, nothing good. Like I told you before, you're only remembered for your last mistake. And it is what it is. It's understandable. That's how that's how we're conditioned to believe when we're living that lifestyle. So. I had come to the realization that there was nothing I was going to do, and I wasn't going to go sit up in the bay because they wanted to send me to the restrictive confinement general population, and they do like 6-month or 1-year reviews, and each year and they'll see like and basically they end up leaving you up there because they determine they can't send you back to the main line, and you can't go SNY because you're refusing to drop out, so, and it's just a bunch of hopeless, miserable people up there, and I wasn't going to go up to Pelican Bay and sit up there for the rest of my life hoping that one day my situation would be fixed, because the reality is I knew that I had overplayed my hand and there was no coming back from it, So, and like I said, given some of the things I had seen over the last few years prior to all that happening, it was kind of like I wasn't enchanted anymore by the stuff I was doing and the life I was living. So when it came time to making that decision, it was just, I ultimately said, hey, you know what, I'm done. They told me you got 2 options. You can go to RCGP, or you can elect to drop out and go to the DPU, and so I said, oh, well, fuck it, let's go this way. So I ended up going to the DPU. Don't get me wrong, like I said, for the first 2 weeks, I was sick to my stomach because I couldn't believe that this was actually happening. That I had shot myself in the foot like that, and I was basically, I was doing what I believed should never be done at that point in my life. Even though I had made the choice to do it, I still believed that I shouldn't be doing it. Like I felt like I had no other option because I wasn't going to go die for this, and I wasn't going to go sit in Pelican Bay riding away, just to smile on my face with a bunch of other dudes that were sitting with targets on their backs so that we could sit around living some illusion, and while all the dudes on the mainland were still talking shit about us, So, like I said, I don't.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I'm not bashing none of the ex associates that I used to run around with or conduct business with or live that life with. It was a decision I made for myself, and again, it was self-preservation. So I end up taking off from right there to what's it called, to Corcoran, and they were opening up a new program. It was supposed to be a fast track debrief process unit with the DPU, which ultimately there was nothing really fast track about it. It still took like a year and a half, but you got to go over there and for, like you said, for the first year, you're walking around feeling like you got shit on your face. Like it's hard to wrap your head around it when like a lot of dudes I was in that unit with, a lot of them cats were there bad mouthing everybody, like they couldn't accept the responsibility for the fact that they fucked theirs off on their own, so they're blaming everybody else, and sure, a lot of the shit was bullshit in the end, and a lot of stuff was asshole backwards, but there was still a lot of good dudes out there that were just living an illusion, and they were good dudes, like not everything they were doing might have been honorable or just, but at the end of the day, a lot of the cats that we run around with were all right individuals. So when I got over there, it was a hard transition. It was hard for me to understand and accept that this was going on. And I'm going against every so-called principle that I've possessed my whole life and so-called belief. So I basically had to debrief and drop out and admit to all the gang stuff that I had been involved in, that they had documentation on, all the violent acts, everything that I had been doing. And again, that was a hard pill to swallow, because it's like, how do you do something like that without harming anybody in the process, And so I ended up going through it. I ended up leaving from Corcoran to Kern Valley, and I was there for a while. I had to do I don't know, I think it was like 8 months or something like that in transitional housing right there. But fortunately for me, when I landed there, when I actually got to Corcoran, the day I arrived at Corcoran, one of the dudes who actually started my gang on the streets actually got there the same day to the dropout unit with me. One of my older ex homies, and he was coming from Kern Valley, and he was up in Pelican Bay in the shoe for a long time, and we got there very same day to unit, and so it kind of made it a little bit easier that I wasn't going through this process alone, because mind you, most gang members are followers. We always want somebody else to go along with us on this ride, or we want somebody to follow or somebody to follow us. That's just the nature of the gang member, And so I was kind of like, it made it a little bit easier knowing that my older homeboy was there going through the same bullshit, and this is a man who's been doing it a lot longer than I was. This is my older homeboy, and my ex homeboy, and so anyways, I sailed up with him, and it just made the process a little easier, And for me, I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, well, everything that made prison okay, like the whole, everything about being locked up that made how I was able to rationalize and justify spending the rest of my life in prison, I was leaving that behind in my mind. This is the conversations I was having with myself. Like, all right, well, you know what? Then what am I going to do now? I might as well try to figure out how to get out of prison. And in my disillusion, I believed that the gangs and the life that I was living was the problem. You know what I mean? Well, hey, now that I'm going over here to these other side where I'm going to do my own time, I'm going to be all right, and I'm going to just figure out maybe I can be a husband, maybe I can be a father, maybe I can actually, try to be a man to my family members, a brother, an uncle, and all that stuff. So my homeboy was there telling me, he's like, hey man, the only regrets I have about all this is I didn't do it sooner. You know what I mean? Like, look at me, I'm 50 years old, and I'm just now doing this, and he had been in prison since '92, And so it was kind of like he's telling me this, but it's not. My heart wasn't in it, Like I'm just like, well, I'm just gonna try to do the right thing, Like I still regret what I'm doing. I still had regrets about what was going on, But I knew that I really didn't have much other any other option, So any other option that I was willing to take, for me it was like this is it, I wasn't gonna go get murdered, and I wasn't gonna go sit up there and play tough guy behind the door in the bay with a bunch of dudes who were just waiting to get, some steel put in them. So basically, I ended up going through the whole transitional housing. I stayed right there with the old boy, and we were cellies for about 2 years. We went from Kern Valley back to Corcoran because they ended up closing the transitional housing in Kern Valley. We went back to Corcoran, and they kicked us out pending transfer, and I ended up coming down here. And like I said, I was still in denial. Like to me, it was like, oh, I'm not a drug addict. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm just coming SNY now, and all the problems were on the yard. All the problems, I had no idea that the common denominator in all my problems was me. So I get out here to this SNY yard, and I get here, and I still have this belief in me.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I'm not like these dudes, and it's crazy because that's how entrenched these distorted beliefs are, and that's how entrenched this criminal thinking and this gang beliefs are. That like, in my mind, I'm walking around this yard, for several months, like, man, I'm not like these dudes. These dudes are weirdos, and because over there when we're on the line, we're taught that everybody over here are chomos and rats and rapists, and just all this stuff, and we just like, and we create this hierarchy of crimes and criminal beliefs that to make us feel better about ourselves. When truth be told, crime is crime. I mean, like everybody suffers from a different disease. And what we're doing, regardless of what your crime is or what it is, it's all fucked up. I mean, like how does taking a man's life, an innocent man's life, any different than beating up an old lady or I know that everybody frowns. Crime is crime. And that's the things I'm starting to learn now. But like I said, so when I got here, I was like, I'm nothing like these dudes. These dudes are all a bunch of weirdos. These dudes are pesetas. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact, like, motherfucker, you're here on the yard with these people. How are you not? How are you not SNY? Like it was just a weird dynamic, a struggle that I was dealing with when I first got here. And within about 4 months of getting here, after telling myself that I was going to come over here and try to like getting into programs and like, try to figure out what I could do to try to rebuild my relationships with my family and maybe hopefully, stay out of trouble and get out of prison one day, But within about 4 months, I started having like an adjustment crisis, like an identity crisis, because it was like I was so used to everywhere I was on the other side, everywhere I had been at, I was the man, I was the dope man, I was the man that had the yard, you know what I mean, like, and that was my identity. That's what defined me from a young age, from joining a gang and selling drugs at a young age, having all these things that I felt I was my identity, all these things that I felt gave me a sense of power and control over other people, and that was my whole self-concept, So when I get here and I don't have any of that anymore, I'm not a gang member anymore, I'm not a drug dealer anymore, I don't have anything, I'm right back to that person, that Jesse, the person who I couldn't face life through the eyes of Jesse before, which is why I created that alternate identity, and joined the gang and started doing all these things to empower me so that I could face life on life's terms, And so when I got here and all this is going on, like within about 4 months of getting here, I'm like, man, I righteously, for the first time in my life, I felt like I was doing time. Like I had been in here, not giving two shits, just living for the day. And now that I didn't have all these masks and this illusion I was living, I was conscious of the time that I was doing, and I righteously felt like a buoy in the ocean. I literally felt like I was just floating along right here, like what am I doing? Like I don't have a cause.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
That I was living for. I believed in it, and that's what it was. It gave me a purpose, and now I don't have none of that, So I'm right here on this yard, and I start like low key, like going into like a little depression, like, man, like what the fuck is, like I couldn't understand, like it was getting hard to do time, and I've never had trouble doing time, it sucked right here, and so I started reverting back to the the things that I knew. I said, well, you know what? I have no respect for these S and Y gangs, so there's no way I'm gonna get, you know what I mean? There's no way I'm gonna get click up with no gangs because I had no respect for them. To me, it was like I didn't drop out of the pros to come play high school ball. You know, that was my mindset. You know what I mean? That's what I was telling myself so I could feel better about myself about being here on these S and Y yards. You know? You want me to call you back?
Absolutely.
All right. I'll call you back.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And for anybody that's listening right now, you're probably listening to the archive video on YouTube. I'm gonna be streaming more often, doing lives. So if you ever have any questions or whatnot, just feel free to drop in and ask any questions you wish to while we are on live. Kind of trying to do a little bit something a little bit different and see how it works out. He should be calling us back shortly in the next few moments, and as soon as he does, we'll go ahead and continue on with the story.
This call is now being recorded.
This is Global Tel-Link. You have a prepaid call from
Jesse NAVA.
an inmate at the Centinela State Prison, Centinela, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. Thank you for using Global Tel-Link.
All right, it's all yours. We're on live.
All right. So as I was saying, I was having that identity crisis. I was going through an adjustment period when I came over here, and so what I ended up doing is I told you I didn't have no respect for the S and Y gang, so I wasn't going to join a gang, and that was the one place that I always found comfort. I always found that was my identity, being a gang member and associating with gang members and like-minded individuals. It gave me a sense of belonging. It gave me something. It's what I was looking for as a kid, and I found it in the gang. It's what I was looking for in prison. I found it in the gang. So the only difference, like I said, when I came over here, is like it wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to get mixed up with the gangs right here because I didn't have no respect for them. Where at that time I looked down my nose at them, where now I just understand they just as lost as I was when I joined the gang and anybody else joins the gang. You know what I mean? It's just these dudes are just looking for the same things that we're looking for when we join gangs. Where at the time I felt like I was better than them. Because I still had a gang mentality. I might not be a gang member, but I was still a gangster in my mind. And so I said, okay, well, what is the one thing that has always worked for me? What is the one thing that has always given me power and control, above all? And that's drugs. Since a young age, I've been a drug dealer since I was 12 years old. And so from a young age, having drugs, it gave me control over people. It made me important. It got me so-called friend, people, to want to gravitate around me. And so what I did is I got back into, dealing drugs right here on this yard. When I got here, people that I knew from the yard that were here were like, hey, fool, this isn't the place, because I was known for everywhere I went, setting up shop. And fools were like, man, this isn't the place, dog. Like don't do it right here. This, you're going to get caught up. Trust me, just kick back. And I'm like, there's nothing here because nobody's trying, and I just came here with the same ignorance that I was operating with on the main line, and I got, I started making shit happen right here. I started getting drugs and phones, and it gave me control over the gangs that were here. I didn't have to be a gang member because I had the sack, or I didn't have to. I made myself indisposable to the yard. And so it's like I may as well have been a gang member. I may as well join one of these PC gangs because I associated with all of them. I empowered them to do their stupid shit that they do out here on these yards. By giving them drugs, by giving them phones, by creating a toxic living environment for those who weren't fucking around, because when there's drugs on the yard, when there's phones on the yard, there's chaos on the yard, and So these dudes are doing whatever they're doing, and of course it made me feel cool because it made me feel like I was powerful. It made me feel like, and like I said, that was my identity. You know what I mean? Without that, like I said, I
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Hello?
knew from, he came from the 180, and I'd known him for a long time, and he had moved, we moved in together, and long story short, we ended up getting involved in like a little melee right here on the yard, and that was like any illusion that I was going to try to do the right thing on this yard. Mind you, I was still in denial. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, as long as I'm not being violent, I'm just selling drugs. That's just part of life in prison. That's just, like, I in my little weird distorted mind, I believe that as long as I'm not involved in a gang or I'm not hurting anybody, I'm doing the right thing. I'm going to group every day. I'm staying out of trouble. Like, that's the things I was telling myself when I first started fucking up right here on the SNY side. And so, like I said, I got involved in that shit, and it ended up, something went bad, and we ended up getting into a little melee right here, and me and a couple guys from where my area and some other dudes, and so when that happened, I, like any governor that I had on my bullshit, was like, well, fuck it, here I am on the SNY side. I'm never gonna get out of prison. Look at this, what I mean? I'm haven't even been over here 6 months and already, getting involved in shit, so they kind of like made it easier for me to just go bonkers, like I was just like, man, fuck it, whatever comes, we're gonna do whatever, and so it was a trip because, mind you, when I first came over here, my wife was like, hey man, like she was ready to leave me already, my family was ready to leave me already. They were already just like, look man, you know what I mean, like, it's just the same stupid shit over and over with you, and so when I came over here, I was like, oh, it's going to be different. It's the gang. I have to do these things. I have to be involved in this stuff. It's my responsibility, and this and that. And just, so when I got over here, I didn't have nobody else to blame anymore, and it's kind of like, so now my wife and my family's giving me shit like, hey, Dad, why, like, you're not, it doesn't sound to me like you're trying to get out of prison, or it doesn't sound to me like, how can you say you care about us and just, these, like, look what you're doing, like. And so my wife was giving me a lot of shit, and so they had actually taken my level 4 override, and I was actually waiting for a bus out of here. I was supposed to take off to Sat F to the 270 over there, and while I was waiting to leave, I ended up getting caught up. I ended up getting a distribution charge, and I went to ADSEG. I ended up getting caught up with some flavo, and they took me to the hole, and like I said, for me, I see it as a saving grace. A lot of people like, man, it's fucked up, this and that, what I mean? But the reality is, me personally, I feel it was all part of God's plan, because if I would have left to, this yard right here was super soft, and being a drug dealer on these yards, you're always going to have the gangs, just like you get in the main line. Everybody wants to put their hand in the pie, what I mean? So right here, the S&Y gangs it's watered down on this yard. But when you go to some of these other, S&Y level 4s, it's chaos, because there is no law and order. Everybody, they're making it up as they go along. And so if I would have actually left to the level 4, there would have never been an opportunity for me to turn my life around, because literally one of my cellie, when I went to the hole, was an actual gang member, and I had even told him when I was waiting for the bus to leave, I told him, hey fool, when I see you again, we're going to be enemies, and he's like, why you say that? And I said, well, if these fools try to press up there like they tried down here, I know up there they're built that way. So if they press, they're going to keep pressing. We're down here, they try to press the line, and they realized they weren't fucking Willie Lump, so of course they fell back, what I mean? But up there on the level 4s, if they decide they want to press on you, they're going to push, because there's enough of them there, and then the ones that are affiliated, a lot of them are about that life. Where right here, it wasn't the case. It's just a bunch of dudes, just, it was a different breed of individuals right here on this level 3. This is like the softest yard in the state of California. So, anyways, he just kind of tripping out on that. So I ended up going to the hole from his cell. I ended up taking off I ended up going to the hole, because they caught me with some cloud and gave me a distribution, and gave me a little shoe, and it was crazy, because while I was back there in that seg, the COVID shit kicked in. I got busted on February 4th of 20. I think it was February 4th of 2020. I ended up going to ADSEG. I was on potty watch for like 5 days, and then I ended up getting housed, and I stayed back there for about 3 months. And while I was back there, COVID like blew up, you know, like it was all over. So they stopped transfers in any of the prisons. So they ended up kicking me back out to the yard right here, pending transfer because of COVID, you know. And so I ended up coming out here to the yard. But while I was back there in Ad Seg, I ran into an old friend of mine. He's from the other side of town. Truth be told, like on the streets, we'd be considered enemies, you know, like because he's from the other side of my town, and but he was actually a boy of mine, you know, that I had been on the line with, and we had a lot of good times with each other. And I ran into him back there, and the irony in this is I had actually wrote this dude at one time, you know, and I seen him back there, and I was just like, man. And he had been down about 24 years at the time, you know. He came from juvenile hall and all that shit. He was a youngster, you know, when he got busted, and so I wrote him a one time like, hey, fool, don't, you know, check it out. Like, just because I'm on this side, nothing's changed. You know, like, this is how, you know, I was still like seeking the acceptance of this dude, knowing damn well that if the doors were to pop or whatever, this fool would have to, you know, he'd have to get off on me. And like knowing that I was SNY and he was GP, but I still felt compelled to save face with this dude, you know, like, you know, because I used to have a lot of love for him, and you know, come to find out, he still had a lot of love, you know. But I wrote him a wheelie, and I told him, hey man, check this out, fool. You know what I mean? Just because I'm on this side, ain't nothing changed. You know what it is, fool. Like, you know, I ain't no fucking weirdo. You know how that goes. And you know, and I was still, you know, talking that shit, and he ends up writing me a wheelie back, like, fool, you know how stupid you sound. You know, and it just kind of like was a slap in the face. You know, he's like, look, dog. He goes, you've already done the hard part. You know what I mean? You're already over there on that side. Why the fuck aren't you getting your life right and trying to get out of prison, dog? Like, why don't, you know what I mean? Like, what like, you talking this nonsense? You know what I mean? Like, fool, he said, he goes, this shit's for the birds. You know what I mean? He goes, I'm back here for, you know, attempted murder. He goes, but straight up, homie, he goes, if they don't pick up this case, he goes, I'm out of here in 5 years. He goes, I'll never come back to prison again. He goes, this shit's a fucking joke. And he's like, so you did the hard part, dog. He goes, you already went to that side. He goes, I'll never go over there. You know what I mean? He goes, I can't imagine what it's like for you being over there. He goes, but I can tell you this, it ain't cool there or here. You know what I mean? He goes, just get right. You know, make things right with your family, get right with God, and get the fuck out of prison, dog. Like, you know what I mean? The doors are open right now. And hearing that, it's crazy because there was cats on this yard talking that shit, you know, out here on this S&Y yard. I had been seeing guys, you know, dudes that I knew from before that were, you know, about that life a little bit, but I you know, I was still in denial, and I was still caught up in my addiction, and I you know, I just really wasn't hearing what they had to say. When I'm seeing these dudes do the right thing, I'm just kind of like, these fools just went soft, or all these fools, you know, like I'm making all these reservations and rationalization for why I was still fucking up, you know. And the crazy thing, the part I forgot to tell you is when I started selling dope right here, and I was doing pretty good, you know, like by criminal standard and by prison standard, I was doing all right here, you know, and the crazy thing about it is that becoming the man right here on this S&Y yard, it didn't fill that hole inside of me that I felt was being filled when I was doing all that stupid shit over there on the main line. Like right here, it didn't have the same effect for me. Like I still felt like shit. I still felt like, man, like what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? Like, and that's why I went head first into my addiction while I was right here on this yard. You know what I mean? Like I ended up ODing like 4 or 5 times right here on this yard. You know what I mean? Like I was just going asshole backwards, you know, just like with drugs, you know, and on the line, it wasn't like that, you know what I mean? Because you had a certain standard. I had a certain standard that I used to keep, and you know, like you're just not going to be all out there with your shit like that. Where right here, it's like nobody can tell me what to do, and I felt like shit because it was hard for me to look at myself in the face because I felt like you know, I had no business here. I felt, you know, I still felt like shit that I had made, that I had put myself in a situation where I had to choose to come over here, you know, and so. When none of that shit's making me feel better, I'm like, yeah, I got all these dudes on my nuts, and yeah, this and that. But at the end of the day, it didn't make me feel any better because I had no respect for.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I had no respect for them, and I had no respect for myself either. I was just like, fool, like what the fuck, like you know what I mean, like come on, you over here trying to be the man on a soft ass yard, you know, like, and these are all the shit that I had going on in my head. So like. Because none of that stuff made me feel better, I started using a lot of drugs. I started using a lot of heroin. You know what I mean? I was using anything to just like escape my reality of the fact that like, you know, everything I lived for, I put behind me. Everything, you know, like, and so, like I said, when I was back there, you know, the homie was like, the old boy from the other side of town was like, look, man, you know what I mean? Like, you know, get this shit right, fool. Get out of prison and don't ever come back. You know what I mean? Like this shit's right here's a joke, you know. And so when he's telling me that. it resonated with me. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like, damn, that's crazy. Like, this fool's still active. He's still about that life. He's still, and this man's telling me, like, what are you doing, fool? Like, you know, we know, like, we know you, fool. Like, just to get out of prison, fool, and just put this shit behind you. So it kind of like resonated with me. Not just that, though, it's like now I'm back there in the hole and I'm sober, and the reality setting in that I fucked off any chance of ever trying to get out of prison. In my mind, that's what I was thinking. I'm about to lose my wife because she's like, I have nobody to blame anymore. So now it's like, well, why are you back in the hole again? You don't get to blame it on anybody. You didn't have, you know what I mean? Like, there's, so it just, everything came at one time. So for a lot of times in recovery, people say you got to reach a rock bottom, right? But me personally, I think you have to reach an emotional rock bottom. You know what I mean? Because rock bottom, we reach many rock bottoms in this fucked up life. You know what I mean? Like, getting life in prison, murdering people, just becoming a drug addict, sticking a needle in your arm. All those things are, to me, would be considered rock bottoms. But until you reach an emotional rock bottom and you're willing to submit yourself, you're never going to be able to truly make change. And they teach you that in CGA too, in Criminals and Gang Members Anonymous, in step 1, that 1,000 people can tell you there's something wrong with you, but if you don't accept that there's something wrong with you, you can't ever change
You have 60 seconds remaining.
that defect or that flaw, So I'm sitting back there in ad seg, with nothing, but my conscience and my thoughts, and I came to this realization, like, man, like, I don't want this anymore. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, and it was just, so for me, I had reached an emotional rock bottom. Like, I didn't want to lose my wife. I didn't want, you know what I mean? Like, I was tired of living this life. Like, the drugs and acting like a tough guy and thinking I was cool and this and that. Like, it wasn't doing nothing for me. Like, what kind of fucking man was I, And so all the reality started hitting me at one time, and it helped me reach like a little emotional rock bottom where I was just like, man, I can't do this anymore. I got to figure something out. I got to do something different. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to die in prison like that on this yard. But you want me to call you back?
Oh yeah. Call me back. I'll be right here.
All right, for sure.
All right, so the call just ended right now. We're gonna go ahead and give him a moment to go ahead and give us a call back, and he should be reaching back to us shortly. And if you haven't done so, he does have. We're actually going through his life from when he was a child all the way until he was an adult up to now. So we have a chapter or part 1 through 12, and I have it under his playlist. You could find it under NAVA Jesse, and it will be located right under my playlist, and you could go ahead and play them in order to catch up on all the events that transpired throughout his life.
This call is now being recorded.
This is Global Tel Link. You have a prepaid call from
Jesse Nava.
an inmate at the Centinela State Prison, Centinela, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Thank you for calling me back or calling us back, Jesse. Just for anybody that's listening out there right now, we are currently live, so this conversation is happening in person, and the mic is all yours, Jesse. Go ahead and handle.
All right. So as I was saying, I was in ad seg doing a bunch of reflection, and I came to that realization that I was done. I was tired. I mean, like the shit was fucked up. And so it was kind of hard. It's kind of hard for me to sit there and continue to rationalize, victimizing my family, victimizing my children, victimizing the family members and all the other people that I had victimized. The innocent man that I murdered and his family. Like basically by refusing to take any responsibility, by living the life I was living. I was, and so all these things are like just kind of like fleeting thoughts in my mind, and I was just like, man, like, you're a piece of shit, like, you're a 39-year-old man and you in here acting like a child. You still,
I'm looking for the acceptance of some dudes that I know if my door popped, they'd kill me. You know what I mean? Or make an effort at it, or just things like that. And it was just, I had a lot of that, and those thoughts going on. And like I said, old boy was like, look, man, you gotta, get right with God. You gotta figure something out, dog, because this shit right here. And so that's what I did, dog. Like I sat there and I come to the realization, like, you know what, man, something isn't right, and I'm doing like a review of my past, and like the only thing that was common in every problem I've ever had in my life was me. I was the common denominator, along the way, I always had somebody to blame. I could blame this, I could blame that. It was his fault, it was her fault, it was their fault. But the reality of it is, I was the only person that was the common denominator in every problem in my life. And regardless of how much culpability I had in each one of those bad situations I had put myself in, I was...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I was completely responsible for the predicaments because I always had choices. I could have always made different choices. So regardless of what other influences I had going on around me, in the end, all the choices were on me, And those weren't things that I could truly understand at that time when I was doing that reflection. I just knew that something wasn't right. I just knew that I couldn't do this anymore, and I knew that I was going to lose anything that was good to me if I didn't figure something out. So truth be told, what I did is I got down right there in that cell, and I prayed, and I'm like, look, God, I can't do this. I've tried. I came over here to this side, and I half-assed tried to make an effort to do the right thing, and I don't have the answer. This is all I know. You know what I mean? So help me out. Show me something. And that's pretty much, for me. That's kind of where my transition started. I daily started praying. I started reading the Bible instead of filling my head with crap. I started filling my head with some positivity. And I just started doing a lot of reflecting. Every day I'd spend time thinking and just running my life back through me. And I had committed. I made a commitment to myself. I made a commitment to my family. I made a commitment to God that I was going to change. I didn't know. I had no idea what that change was going to look like. I had no idea. Mind you, when I told my wife when I came SNY that I was going to do good and I was going to be good, I wholeheartedly believed it. You know what I mean? I believed that I was going to do the right thing, because in my mind, I believed that the problem was around me. I didn't believe I was the problem. So I'm like, well, I'm going SNY. I'm going to go over there and be good and stay out of trouble, and I'm going to, be whoever my family needs me to be, But the reality is that it was inside me. I was the rottenness, And so when I'm sitting back there in that seg, I made that commitment. I made that commitment to God, and I asked him, for some strength, for some direction, some guidance, and just help me figure it out. I didn't know what change was going to look like. I didn't know how it was going to come. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that I was done with being the person who I had been for damn near the last 30 years of my life. You know what I mean? I was just like, I was over it. You know what I mean? And so, mind you, simply making a commitment like that, you don't just wake up the next day and hey, it's raining rainbows and stars and sprinkles and shit. You know what I mean? Like it's a process, and even to this day, that was 3.5 years ago. That was February of 2020. Here we are in October of 2023. So it was basically 3.5 years ago, and so I came out of the hole. They ended up kicking me out early because, like I said, they had the COVID and they had all that stuff going on. So they ended up kicking me back out to the yard pending transfer to the level 4. And when I got back out here to the yard, I came out here and I was committed. I told myself I'm done messing with, with drugs. I'm done messing with anybody, that fucks around. But the crazy thing about it is I still had so much of this criminal beliefs and this distorted, with this warped belief system that like, oh, I'm only going to sell up with this kind of dude. I have to live with a convict. I have to live with somebody who knows how to, do cell time. And, just like, basically, I had to live with people like me, basically the same kind of people I lived with all my time and the same kind of people I had been living with, but in my mind, I was like, well, hey, what they're doing, that's on them. As long as he's righteous, he's not he's not a child molester or a rapist or, and he's all right and this and that, I'm okay. He can do whatever he wants to do. I'm just going to do me. I'm going to, I'm not going to get high, or I'm not going to be messing around or whatever it is, and, but it doesn't work that way, and I learned, I learned pretty quick, that you can't, when you make a commitment like that, you ultimately have to sever ties with anybody that's still involved in that kind of lifestyle, because I ended up selling up with the homie who was a liability because he was always getting in shit on the yard. He was a good ass dude to have around you because he was with it, But at the end of the day, it's like I didn't want that anymore. I don't need people with me to be with it, because my intention was to not get in shit anymore, not to mess around, not to, not to have problems with anybody, And mind you, though, when you have these beliefs and you have this perspective of the world, like you hold yourself to certain standards and you hold people around you to standards, So of course I had to come back out here, and now I'm hypersensitive to how judgmental I was, and how I seen things, and I'm just kind of like, damn, like, it started flooding in the how distorted my thought process was. I get faced with situations, and I'd get upset, or I'd start talking shit, and I'd be like, well, hold on, man, like that's not conducive to where you're trying to go. And mind you, I had been reading the Bible, and I had been like trying to get a little bit of spiritual principle about myself, and so it wasn't jiving. The person who I had created for myself to navigate places like this, like prison and this lifestyle, that person wasn't it was still inside me, but it was conflicting with the person who I wanted to be, and so I started realizing, with my celly, like, man, this dude's going in a different direction than me, I started doing correspondence courses, and I actually got certified as a paralegal. I started doing a correspondence course through Blackstone Paralegal to get my paralegal certification. And mind you, I've never done nothing. I've never done. I've never finished anything in my life. I've never been academically, ambitious or anything like that. But I said, you know what? I'm willing to do anything that's contrary to who I used to be and what I was doing before. Like I got to start applying myself. I've never been stupid. I've never been retarded. I just chose to play dumb and take the easy road. And so, my wife was like, hey, I seen this paralegal thing on what's up? You want to, and I was kind of like, damn, I was intimidated a little bit.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I did most of my time, politicking, getting high, talking on cell phones, not going to school, not applying myself, not. And so when she asked me, like, what's up, man, you want to do this? And I was just kind of like, well, let's do it. So I set out on that journey. I completed that. I ended up enrolling in a Coastline Community College, which is a correspondence for pursuing my AA and business, and started taking classes. I started doing a lot of self-help programs here on the yard. It was mid-COVID, so they were limited to the ones that we could do, but we were doing a lot of voluntary ones on the yard, and like I said, it was a struggle in the beginning, because I still seen certain things. I still believe certain things, and even to this day, I still have certain beliefs that and I don't want to say it's so much judging people or still criminal, but it's somewhat criminal thinking. I still like, hey, those dudes are busted for this or that, and I guess you could say I kind of frown on it a little bit, like, like, man, this dude's a weirdo, or you say things like that, but the reality of it is, I'm about to go out here into this real world where I don't know who's around me. You know what I mean? I'm going to go to these streets, and there's nobody out there checking paperwork. You know what I mean? You're not going to go to a job site. You're going to be surrounded by all kinds of creeps and weirdos, but you're not walking around, trying to figure out, oh, this dude a weirdo or this, that, like, and those are things that I struggled with even in my change. Like, I didn't want to be around any kind of people, and right now I have a different belief. Like, right now I feel like if anybody needs help, it's these dudes on these yards that got these fucked up cases, because the reality of it is, those cats are going to get out of prison before anybody like me will get out of prison. And those guys are going to be the ones living back next door to my wife, next door to my daughters, next door to, places that I might be. And so, like, whatever disease that I suffered from that made me an addict and made me a murderer and made me a criminal, and that I'm getting treatment for right now, like, if there's any way, shape, or form that I can try to help these dudes, because these cats are going to get out before I do it, and I don't want them going back to my neighborhood or my community where my wife and my family live, and not get any treatment for the fucking disease that they suffer from that caused them to do fucked up things, And so that's kind of how I see it now, and I feel like I'm compelled to see things that way now, because it's like I try to break down those barriers that, like, of separating me from them. Like, I'm doing my own time now, and of course it's not that easy. It's not that easy, because there's still, when you've been doing it and you're conditioned to believe and see things the way you do for so long, it's not as easy as just telling you like that. Like, these are things I struggle with every day. So pretty much that's what I've been doing, for the last 3 years. I've been working on myself. I've been rebuilding the relationships that I've destroyed. I've come to understand that the impact of the things that I was doing, like even in all these years of selling drugs, to me, I felt like dealing drugs was a victimless crime. Like, well, if anything, I'm doing a service to these cats. I'm giving them drugs. But the reality of it is, like, I come to the realization that, like, man, not only am I victimizing these people on these yards that I'm getting high and giving these potentially deadly, narcotics to, but I'm victimizing their family. I'm victimizing Mr. Gutierrez, the innocent man who I murdered, why I ended up coming to prison. I'm victimizing his family because I'm in here, just still thumbing my nose at authority and thumbing my nose at the law the same way I did when I was out on the streets when I committed this callous murder, And so I come to all these realizations through programs that I've been attending over the last 3.5 years. I said I ended up getting into Imperial Valley College, and right now I'm getting my AA in psychology. So I'm going to double major. When I declare my AA, I'm going to have a AA in business and psychology for transfer. And if I end up in prison, if I stay here long enough, I'll end up transferring to the bachelor program that they have right here, San Diego State. Like I said, I don't judge none of these cats. Now, if anything, I can actually empathize for the dudes here on this yard that are still doing the same things that they were doing when I got here, or still struggling with the same shit. Like a lot of cats get into recovery and they start turning their life around. They start looking down their nose at people like they're better than them or this and that, and it's kind of like, come on, man, like that's not what this is about. You know what I mean? Like recovery is for the sick, not for the healed. And so. Like that, I say all the time, Jesus came for the sinner, not the saved. So it's like, I don't judge none of these cats because I understand the diseases that they're suffering from. I understand what it is. Addiction is a sickness. You know what I mean? Like I never understood that before. You know what I mean? Like, but coming to those understandings has kind of helped me heal so that I'm not like, for a long time I hated my parents. I hated my mom. I hated my dad. Because they were drug addicts, because they abused us, because they let us go to CPS, all this crazy shit. And I blamed them. But now that I understand my addiction, I understand like they were doing what they knew, just like I was doing what I knew. You know what I mean? My children could hate me the same way because I've made no efforts to get out of prison up until the last 3.5 years. I've made no efforts to be a better person. Like I basically abandoned them by coming to prison. And so it's kind of like in my transformation, I came to that place where I understand, like, you know what, man, I can't resent my parents. They were sick, but they were doing what they knew. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make it okay. It's not an excuse, but I understand what they were going through. You know what I mean? So, I've learned to kind of like heal from a lot of past experiences, a lot.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
And essentially, that's basically what I've been doing now. Now I've just been basically utilizing my time to be a service. I facilitate many self-help programs. I've created programs here. I make sure I surround myself with like-minded individuals. And anytime there's somebody here that's struggling, that's looking for a sponsor, I try to sponsor dudes. Try to do whatever I can to affect the change that I want to see in around me. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at today. I don't know if you have any questions or any specifics you might have been looking for.
Yeah, I absolutely do. I know it's about to hang up. If you could go ahead and give me a call back, and I do have hopefully I'll have some questions for you when you come back. So I'm sure I'll think of something between now and then. And the audience too, if you guys go for it.
Great.
Thank you. All right, and if you're listening to this live stream, and if you heard the previous interviews, or if you're listening to this interview now and you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and drop a question, or if you have a comment, go ahead and drop that in there, and I could go ahead and read it back to him. As long as it's respectful and and in good taste. And he should be calling us back in a moment or two. It shouldn't take that long. So just sit tight, and we'll go ahead and get this show on the road again.
This call is now being recorded.
This is Global Tel Link. You have a prepaid call from
Jesse NAVA.
an inmate at the Centinela State Prison, Centinela, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
And Jesse, thank you for calling us back. Just want to go ahead and let the audience know that we are currently live right now. So if they have any questions, once again, go ahead and drop them into the comment. And I thought about a question right now while I was waiting for you to call back. And my question would be, do you think or do you feel that you went to prison to find a better version of yourself?
I don't believe I was sent to prison to find a better version of myself. I believe I was sent to prison to be punished for the act of murder, But I believe along the way, and it's embarrassing to say that it took me, basically about 20 years to come to this understanding, to find this better version of myself. Absolutely, today I've definitely found a better version of myself, and I'm still finding that person, and I believe I'll be shaping that person and rebuilding that character for years to come, and probably for the rest of my life, But I do believe that coming to prison saved my life, ultimately ended up saving my life, because if everything didn't happen the way it happened, and I tell these guys all the time, like, COVID saved my life. There's not a lot of people that can say COVID saved their life, and I believe COVID saved my life because it kept me here in this prison. This yard right here is completely conducive to change. It's the kind of place you can let your hair down where you don't, because prison's prison. It's a dangerous place. And yards like these that are real soft and real mellow and real kickback. It allows you the liberty of jumping head first into transformation, because you go to these other yards and there's righteous predators. There's dudes. There's dudes that. That's the life they live. Where places like this yard right here, it's not like that. So when you commit to change, you don't have to be in survival mode. You don't have to worry that you know what, man, this I got to protect myself, or I don't, this and that. So I believe that coming to prison, I absolutely did find a better version of myself. And it's only been in the last few years, and like I say again, it's embarrassing. That's a little bit of shame that I still live with today, that I struggle with, that I'm working past. That man, like, how can I see things so objectively? How can I see things so clear right now, when just a few years ago I was oblivious to any of this? Like, you couldn't tell me any of the things that I know today, and me not think you were crazy, or me not be like, man, dude, bump his fucking head, like, that fool's soft as hell, or all, like, I had all this, these perspectives that was just like, really, like, and so where now today it's kind of like, man, I love who I am today, and I'm excited about who I'm going to be tomorrow, because I've made great strides in the last few years, and I know that this is just the beginning for me. Like I said, I'm just now starting to do things that I can really be proud of. Not being the man, not getting, not hurting somebody, not, the things that I found value in before, like the things that I'm doing now. My kids love me, my family loves me, my family sees, like, they can see the difference in me, and like, for once in my life I can truly be proud, and I can say I'm living a life of integrity. I live with honor, like, and so, like, for me, I'm absolutely found a better version of myself today,
Thank you for answering that, Jesse. And before I forget, I want to go ahead and congratulate you on the changes you've made in your life, and actually taking advantage of all the programs that the CDC is actually offering, and going to school, and changing your life for the best. Right now, we actually have two questions from two different listeners. We have a total of 4 people listening right now, which is great, because sometimes we get 0. So the first question is gonna be from Kyla, or Kai LA, and she asks, being in the shoe, how did that affect you mentally, and how did you deal with it?
Well, being in the shoe, as far as it varies. Like how it affected me. Like, looking back, like, it's funny. When me and my celly were just talking about this today. Like, for those of us that have been living in a cell for so long, like, truth be told, in that kind of environment, like, that's, for some of us, like, that starts to be like the one place that you feel the most comfortable, because it just, you condition yourself to be that way. I look back at it now from where I am today, though, and it's like, nah, you know, like, it was that, like, it was fucking, you know, it was fucking me up, at least, you know, like sitting, you know, being locked in that cell every day, the monotony of how it worked every day. You know, you went out to the cage, they cuffed you up, they stripped you, they walk you to the cage, they strip you, they cuff you up, they walk you back, they walk you to the shower. That's the extent of your movement, you know, and it starts to kind of like, you're already in a prison, you're already in prison, and now you're inside a prison. So what you start doing is it starts numbing your senses, you know what I mean? Like, you start becoming what you call it, desensitized, you know. And the crazy thing, like, there's a lot of crazy shit that happens in these shoes, you know, like, and you know, you hearing dudes getting murdered down the tier, you're hearing dudes get raped, like, there's just crazy shit, you know, and like, and the cops, you know what I mean, like, they don't, you know, they got very little respect for you. So it's like, for me, I kind of felt like I was in my element being there, because then I don't have to deal with anybody else. And like, looking back at it now, like, that kind of was again, that's me taking the easy road, because when you're out here on these yards and you're out here living this life, like, it's a stressor, you know, because every day you got to be conscious of the surrounding. When you're in the shoe, you're kind of a little more at peace, because it's basically you and your cellie. Yeah, there's drama going on all around you, but for the most part, you only got to deal with you, your cellie, and the cop that's escorting you to the cage or to the shower, you know, like, that's the extent of it, you know. So, looking back, though, I think it made it how you say, like, the shoe tends to make you more of an introvert, you know what I mean, because you kind of learn to, humans are naturally social creatures, and me of all, like, I'm straight social butterfly. Anybody that knows me, like, you know, I'm a people's person. But when you start spending all that,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
your only real companion tends to be your conscience. You know what I mean? Like, and you so you're constantly thinking. You're constantly, like, you know, it basically you're entertaining yourself in your own mind. It's just a trip. So it kind of, what it does is it kind of like desensitizes you to the fact that you're in prison. Desensitizes you, like, because you start boxing yourself in more and more and more. You know, so. Yeah, for me, like, the way I did, I mean, in the shoe, like I said, you get a pattern, and you have to you stick to that pattern, and when the pattern deviates, you start to feel like something isn't right. You know, you get up at a certain time, you clean the pad, you exercise, everything is in a pattern, and when you break that pattern, that's why so many cats come out of the shoe all obsessive compulsive, because they you know, they create these patterns for themselves, you know, and to the point to where it gives them a sense that they have some sort of control over their life, because they're, you know, okay, this is what I'm doing right now, this is how this is going to work, this is what I'm, you know, and everything's a pattern, and pretty much most of the cats in the shoe, every single day, whatever their routine is for that day, it's usually the same thing every freaking day of their life, because when they deviate from that, people get, you know, I know I would get anxious, or, you know, like, you know, if I didn't hit my floor when I'm supposed to hit my floor, I couldn't think of anything else, because normally right now what I'm supposed to do is hit the floor. This is my study time. This is my letter writing time. You know, this is my book reading time. You know, a lot of books. That's one thing you're going to do in the shoes. You're going to read a lot of books, you know. So that's pretty much how I dealt with it, you know, going out there and exercising. That's a big thing, you know. It helps you relieve a lot of that stress, you know. But yeah, I mean, I guess that would answer your question.
Thank you for answering that. And then
I hope that answered your. I hope that answered your question.
Well, they got another question after that one, so I'm gonna go ahead and actually there's two more questions, and then I'm gonna go ahead and read. Somebody put MJ put she's applauding you. She put the little emoji with the clapping hands for you. And then we have another question from
Thank you, MJ.
All right, thank you. And then we have a question from La Analyst, and she says, on one of your interviews, you mentioned being removed due to over familiarized. What does that mean? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So, like, if they in here they call it over familiarization with staff. Like, if they feel that like, if it's a female, if you have a female boss, and you guys, they start to feel that you guys are becoming too comfortable with each other. You know what I mean? Like, If they get the impression that you and a staff member are doing something inappropriate, they can hit you for over familiarization with staff, or like, even it could be the same way with a dude, not just a female. For me it was a female, but like you can have it with male staff. Like, a lot of times, a lot of the contraband, a lot of shit coming. Everybody knows. Most of the shit that comes into prison comes from the staff. You know what I mean? So, if you got an officer that that you straight with, and even now, like, while I'm doing the right thing, I don't want to put just a negative connotation on that. Like, even right now, I do the right thing. A lot of these officers now are learning to treat me with respect and treat me with some humanity and some dignity, and so, like, they'll conversate with you in a way that there's still a certain an ethical code that they have to follow, I guess, being correctional officers. But when they start to see you as a human being, it becomes a little harder, because the line gets blurred a little more. So they're cool with you, and they'll talk to you right. But if you get some other CO that's like gung-ho with a stick up his ass, and he's like, hey, man, you guys shouldn't be playing like that, or you guys shouldn't be, talking about, each other's family, or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And that could be considered over familiarization. But it's a lot of times, most of the time, over familiarization usually comes in between a male and an male inmate and female staff, or a female inmate and male staff, and usually they try to give the impression that something inappropriate was taking place, and that's not always the case, though.
Thank you for answering that question, Jesse. And then there's also another question, which would be from Kyla, which is the first person that asked a question about the shoe. She's asking, did you and your cellie always get along? I'm guessing when you were in the shoe.
Yeah, like I mean, me personally, for the most part, I've gotten along with most of my cellies, because I'm not a hard dude to live with. You know what I mean? Like, it's the ones that spent, like, 15 plus years in the shoe. Those are the kind of dudes that get real hard to live with, because they're so OCD that any little thing in the cell, they become nitpickers, and everything just it becomes an issue, or again, with people like us that are criminals and gang members, if we're honest with ourselves, we all think we're right. We think we know everything, and it's like, you can't have a simple conversation with somebody that has an alternate view without feeling compelled to impose your view, and so those kind of things take place in the cells all the time. Me personally, I've never, I haven't had too many conflicts with cellies, because I'm kind of an easy dude to live with. Like, I move in with somebody, and it's like, hey, you tell me how to do me the best way I can around you. I've been with some of them cats who are real difficult to live with, but before it becomes an issue, like, before I start feeling like, okay, I'm giving you your respect, I'm giving you your place, now I kind of feel like you're playing cell captain. So, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to move up out of here before I feel compelled to say something, or because this becomes an issue. Most of the guys that are like that live like that, their cell is usually a revolving door. You'll know who the guys are that are difficult cellies, because they can never keep a cellie. But with me, I've had maybe, in the 22 years I've been down, I've maybe had conflicts maybe twice, to the point to where I had to move out of the cell. You know what I mean? Like, where it was, like, whether I moved or they moved, you know what I mean? But where it all ended up resulting in some, some sort of altercation, So, and yeah, so for the most part, I pretty much got along with most of my cellies. Again, I'm not a difficult individual to live with. I don't really care how you do your time. You just tell me how to do me around you. As long as I don't have to clean up after you, nobody wants to live with a dirtbag, and so that's pretty much for me. That's what it is, I don't have a lot of cell hang-ups. So it's people that have cell hang-ups that's like, hey, don't do this, hey, don't do that, hey, don't do this. And then it gets to a point where it's like, come on, man, we grown-ass men, you know what I mean? Like, it seems to me like every step I take, you have an issue with, you know what I mean? Like, and that's why when you move into a cell with somebody, you try to establish some ground rules, But you got them cats that they'll establish the ground rules, but then they keep putting...
You have 60 seconds remaining. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I've got along with most of my cellies, and like I said, most of the places I've been, I was usually in some sort of position of authority, so I pretty much got to choose who I was living with most of the time, and it was usually somebody that I was pretty close with. When you live in that life, you try to keep those that you can trust around you, or those that you're tight with, you know.
Thank you for that answering that, Jesse. And if you don't mind calling us back, Kayla, she's hitting us with the questions
Yeah.
right now. So we got more questions for you.
I will do.
All right,
I'll
perfect.
right now.
Thank you. All right, and I want to go ahead and send the thanks to you guys participating. I really appreciate you guys answering questions. That's going to really help us get into the algorithm and get this message out. Hopefully these stories that these inmates are sharing, it'll help somebody out there not make the same mistakes and not go down the same path that they did. So hopefully something positive does come out of here. I'm not trying to promote any violence or whatnot, but ultimately these gentlemen went to prison, and when you go to prison, you have to do things that you normally won't. You're not comfortable doing. So it's either you or them, pretty much. So just hang in there and just give me a moment, and he should go ahead and be calling us shortly. And once he does, we'll go ahead and keep on running with this right now. All right, and I'm still here. I'm just waiting for the call to come through. And as soon as that call comes through, then we'll go ahead and continue with the pending questions.
This call is now being recorded.
This is Global Tel Link. You have a prepaid call from
Jesse NAVA.
an inmate at the Centinela State Prison, Centinela, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
All right, Jesse, thank you for calling back. So next question from Kyla is she's asking, does it get tiring being in the same routine every day?
I mean, honestly, I really, from my personal experience, that's the only way to like maintain what could be perceived as a sense of sanity, because that routine is what kind of like keeps you from like realizing how fucked up things are. I mean, of course it gets boring and tired, but you get so hyper vigilant about each one of those tasks in that routine, and again, that's how people become kind of obsessive and compulsive. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like you're focusing on every aspect when you're in that routine, whatever that time and that moment is, whatever your function is in that routine, that's all you're focused on. Then when it's time to move on to the next, and you stick to that routine, that to me it seems like that's the only way things, like if there was no order to my day, like it was just today I'm gonna do this, there's only so many things you can do when you're locked in a box like that. So if you don't keep that same routine, but as far as like you absolutely get tired of waking up and staring at the same fucking door every day. When you're out there in the cages, you're looking around because it's the same dudes. You're seeing the same dudes every day. You look out your window and you see the doors are honeycombs. So you look out there and you see the same shit in the pod. The same tower. Like that shit right there kind of gets like, but you don't allow yourself to think about that. That's why people stay on using drugs so much in prison, because they're trying to escape that reality. Like I know that was, for me, that's kind of what it was. Like I just couldn't, like I didn't want to have to face the, like, man, this is what my life is. This is how I'm going to die. This is what it was. So I created a routine. So we do those things so that way we never have to really, like, face the fact that this is nonsense. This is crazy. Like, what the fuck am I doing? It's like Groundhog Day every single day. Like I look back at it now from where I sit today with my life. And again, my routines are still the same every day. Not those same routines, but I have a routine that I do every day. My days are pretty much the same, except they're days filled with productivity. You know what I mean? Like I go to school all day. I go to work. I go to group. I go to exercise. Like I keep the same patterns to make sure that I'm staying on a forward progress. You know what I mean? Because if you don't plan, you fail. If I'm not making a plan, I'm gonna fail. If I don't have an objective, if I don't have a goal, it's like then I'm just like floating along. So I kind of like to keep that routine. But I definitely, now that I'm not living my life high every day, now that I'm not just on some bullshit that I, it's sometimes the reality, like every day I'm like, man, I gotta hurry up and get the fuck out of this place. Like, this isn't for me anymore. You know what I mean? Like, and it's crazy because at one point in time I was doing life without the possibility of parole. I was never gonna get out of prison, and I was 100% okay with that. You know what I mean? Like, I had reserved myself to dying in here, and now that I know that there's so much more to life, like it feels like being here is just like holding me back. You know what I mean? Like, I righteously hate being in prison now, when at one point in time I had no problem being here. I was like, shit, we got it made. We got 3 hots and a cot. Like, it's hard out there in the real world. Like, that's the kind of chicken shit train of thought that I and most criminals and drug addicts and gang members that live and die in prison, that's how we think. Like, motherfuckers on the streets got it hard. I'm up in here. All I got to do is worry about today, here and now. We'll figure about tomorrow when tomorrow gets here. So, yeah, the monotony sucks, but I think at the same time, the monotony, kind of helps sometimes.
All right, thank you for answering that. And I just want to give you an update. Now we have a whopping 6 people listening. So hey, we got 2 more. So that's more than yesterday. So any numbers that are listening right now, that's 1 more person that we had yesterday, and a possible chance of actually helping somebody out from not making the same mistakes. That got you where you're at, or the decision that you made to get you where you're at. We have another question from La Analyst. Oh, she's coming in hot. She's been a supporter since I started. So it's really nice to have these people in here and help me out with these questions. So the question she's asking is, do you have a good support system outside of prison?
Yes, absolutely. That's critical right there. If it wasn't for the support system that I have, I would have never had the courage to make the changes that I've made. Honestly, like, it wouldn't, you know what I mean? I would have never had the hope. You know what I mean? It was my support system and realizing how I was affecting them that gave me the courage to do the things that I'm doing today, and were initially my motivators when I first began my change. So, and now, as many bridges as I've burned, and as much shit as I've put my family through, they show me how much they love me every day. They're here for me. You know what I mean? So I absolutely have a strong support network. And for anybody that's listening to this, and maybe the youngsters that might be listening to this
call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I know sometimes when we're out there and we were teenagers and we're kids, and we kind of felt like the whole world was against us and nobody was there for us, nobody cared, and the very few people who did extend their hand to us, we just had this belief that, they don't understand what we're going through, they don't know our life, they don't know the things that I've experienced, they don't know this, they don't, and just know that there's people who do care, there's two people who do know, and I can look back in my life now, and I always had somebody there, at least at one point or another, extending a hand to me, but I was too stubborn, I was too ignorant, I was too naive to see what it was, and so now, like I said, I do have people out there who love me, I do have friends out there, I have a strong support network in my recovery, I have a strong support network in my family, I have a lot of ex-lifers that I deal with that have transformed their life and got out there and they're successful now. I have, a lot of dudes that have trudged this path of recovery before me who show like, okay, well, you know what, man, if that man can overcome his addiction, then I can. It's all a state of mind. So I do have a strong support network out there.
Thank you for that, Jesse. And I have a question for myself. I'm gonna kind of digress from what you're speaking about right now. I want to go back and ask a question about when you're when you're pretty much disregarded. So either you're in the hat or you're in bad standings. Have you ever seen or encountered anybody that was in bad standings and just kind of refused to accept what their situation was, and what they had coming, and and if they did try to fight the system, because pretty much like if they go against the grain, I mean, pretty much it's just them versus like a whole sea of people that have it out for them. Has anybody ever either successfully fought that and got back in good graces, or were they stabbed, or just people that just ended up in the PHU just refusing their what they had coming?
Yeah, no, it happened. That happens all the time. You know what I mean? Like, truth be told, if you were really out there running amok, most dudes have been in the hat at one point, one time or another. You know, like back before all the members got kicked out to the line, you weren't doing something right if you didn't have somebody gunning for you, because there was just so many sharks. And then you put a bunch of sharks in a tank, and this food becomes scarce, sharks turn on each other. So it's a treacherous game, and anybody that's played it and lived it, they know how serious it is. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna tell you right now, like myself included, like most of the dudes that I was politicking with at one time or another have had to face the firing squad. You know what I mean? Like I said, I've been blasted before, and kept my head up and kept on pushing and got my runbacks, or sometimes I've seen dudes that fucked up and they just took what they had coming and ultimately kept on pushing, and I've seen, I know dudes. I mean, there's members today. There's dudes that are actual gang members, prison gang members that were on complete disregard at one point in time. You know what I mean? It just depends on the circumstances. Like not too badmouth anything that them dudes are doing or whatever it is, but the game is so watered down this day and age that if your checkbook is fat enough, you could buy your way out of any situation. I know dudes on them yards that they're bona fide fucking rapos, and dudes on them yards that are bona fide rats, and like, it's just all about who you know and how strong your resources are, And like I said, not to take nothing away from the guys who are doing it however they were taught to do it, but I'm gonna tell you right now, the game is it's all gray area now. There is no black and white. It's not what it used to be, And it's a damn shame, because I know a lot of motherfuckers that gave their life to this stuff,
Thank you for answering that question, Jesse. And just want to give you an update on how many people we got now. We got a whopping 8, man. We're so close to hitting those double digits. And I have another question, man. I love this interaction, because there's people out there, they're at home, or they're out and about, or they're driving and they're listening to this, and if they have like a question or a thought, they could just type it up, and and then I could just read this off to you, and it's instant, which is pretty cool, I think. So Kyla is asking, let me see, what do you want to accomplish when you get out?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Well, the reality of it is, it's not about what I want to accomplish. It's about what I am going to accomplish. My ultimate goal, like I said, I'm going to parole with a psychology degree that ultimately I'm going to end up utilizing in my profession. I'm going to become a certified drug counselor, and I'm going to start a youth diversion out here. I come from a small area in Riverside County in the Coachella Valley, and it's connected right here to Imperial Valley. The demographic, there's not a lot of resources put out here in these areas, and part of my support network out there right now is a lot of the people that I have in my support network are on the board, on the education board, are principals of high schools, principals of middle schools, principals of continuation schools, even one of the continuation schools that my daughter graduated from, my other daughter graduated from. So I have some resources out there that are people that are willing to help me, that believe.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
So my goal ultimately is to get out there to the streets and establish a nonprofit organization. Right now, they're closing down the juvenile justice system. The California youth authorities are closing down. They're moving all juvenile justice to the county level. So there's a lane right there. They're not 100% sure how they're doing it. I know in counties like LA, where they're big counties, they got a lot more resources, and they got a better idea of how they're going to be doing things. But you get little places like where I'm from, like Mayberry out this way, you know what I mean? Like the road's kind of wide open to help to be able to establish myself out here. So my goal is to utilize my experiences to help, to basically help youth prevent them from making the same choices I made. I'm going to be a certified drug counselor. I'm going to get certified. If I'm not able to do it before getting out of prison, because they have the offender mentor certification program here in CDCR, where they certify you as a KD drug counselor, where I can go out there to the streets and I'm certified by the state of California as a drug counselor. I can go get it out there at the College of the Desert, or I can get it through my alma mater right here, Imperial Valley College, online as an alcohol and drug specialist or alcohol and other drug counselor. So my goal is to get out there and establish basically a youth diversion, and everybody that's going to be with me is going to be basically ex-lifers, people that have come up from the struggle. Because like I said before, a lot of youngsters, myself included, when we ran out to these streets, to these gangs, it's because we were experiencing things at home. There was things going on that were at home that we ran to the streets to find things that we weren't getting at home. So my thing is if I can catch some of these youth in the school, if I can utilize the school board and I can utilize my resources in the schools to help my program, that way we can catch some of these youth prior to them ever having to enter the juvenile justice system. I have a friend who's actually a lead investigator for the district attorney's office out here in Riverside County. He used to be part of the gang unit, and his brother's part of the gang unit. And they actually they grew up the same time I grew up. They just took a different route, and so they my goal is to ultimately have them help me out, so that way if because these teachers, these principals, these schools.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
You can notice when a kid is starting, whether it's in elementary school, whether it's in middle school, whether it's in high school, you can see when these youth are starting to deviate from what's right, And if we can catch them there, rather than putting them in detention, rather than suspending them, things like that, they can refer them to my program. And ultimately, it'll be like a Big Brother program, but with a different twist on it. It'll be with people that they can relate to them, so you don't got some kid like, man, you don't understand what I'm going through. You don't know, like, come on, youngster, like, I understand what you're going through 10 times over. I lived your life, you know what I mean? Like, and there's relatability, there's connectivity, and then I can give them an avenue, I can give them a vehicle to kind of, basically give them something else to do versus going out to these streets and finding camaraderie in a gang, finding, all these antisocial activities that validate themselves, And so I'm working on a business plan for it right now. Like I said,
All right, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, the call, came to an end because of the 15-minute mark. But he should be calling us back shortly. Once he does call us back, I'm sure he'll continue with his thoughts and whatnot. So just go ahead and sit tight. And if you are listening to this podcast, if you could go ahead and do us a favor and either share or like this podcast, is going to help us get the word out, and possibly hopefully help somebody out, and not to make the same mistakes that a lot of us have made, and before it's too late. Maybe he's not gonna call us back. I'm not sure. So I'll give it like another minute or so, and hopefully he does call back. And as soon as he does, I'll go ahead and connect that call. it is.
This call is now being
This is
recorded.
Global Tel-Link. You have a prepaid call from
Jesse NAVA.
an inmate at the Centinela State Prison, Centinela, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel-Link.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate you calling back. I know we've been on for quite some time, but I just want to go ahead and share some other comments that were left. We still have 6 people now. La Analyst put kudos to Jesse for his goals, and she put the little 100 sign, and then Kyla put, "I know you'll make it happen!" exclamation mark.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for the confidence.
So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and take a screenshot of the chat, and I'll go ahead and send it on over to you via the Getting Out app. If there's anybody out there, that wants to reach out to you, like let's say there's a youngster, he's kind of going through some stuff. Would you be okay with them reaching out to you, like if they have any questions and whatnot, and them sending you a text message via the Getting Out app?
Oh, absolutely. I'm here for anybody that needs a friend, or anybody that I can utilize my experiences. Anybody needs somebody to relate to. I'm here for that. Absolutely, especially a youngster that might feel like he's going through some things, and they heard anything in my story that they think that I might be able to relate to whatever they're going through, and just know that I don't think there's anybody there's anything that anybody has gone through in life that I haven't experienced with respect to this dysfunction stuff that I can relate to, whatever it is, and so if I can help anybody, absolutely hit me up,
Really appreciate you extending that olive branch to anybody that needs it. And I'm pretty sure it is going to help people out, especially like listening, playing back these conversations or you speaking. I'm pretty sure it's going to help a lot of people, just because the way you
This
speak.
call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
There's something about the way you speak and the conviction you have in your voice, and you're very charismatic the way you speak. So I'm pretty sure you're going to reach a lot of people, and people will share this podcast or this video and pass it on to the people that should be listening to it.
Absolutely. That's my goal ultimately with this podcast, is hoping that we can get some more people to see that not everybody in prison is shit. When people think prison, they just think that they think about the life that I lived for damn near the first 20 years of my life in here. You know what I mean? But prison isn't just full of that. There's a lot of redeemable individuals in here, and I know they tend to put us in here just to throw us away, but there's a lot of resources in here. They're investing in us, and we just have to see that and capitalize on it, and hopefully we can get the message out to people out there that whatever they're putting into CDC, when they added the R to CDCR, that stuff's working, man, because I'm watching the culture in prison change. I'm watching, dudes, stone cold killers, stone cold gang members, stone cold drug addicts turn their life around, you know what I mean? And it's all because of the stuff that they're offering us, you know what I mean? Like, I never thought I'd have a tablet in prison. I literally have a laptop right here, a Dell laptop, that I use for school right here. Like, this is the kind of shit that we got going on in prison right now, and it's mind blowing, but it's awesome. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm gonna take full advantage of it, and make sure that I set myself up in the best way possible, so that when I get out of prison, I never come back to this place again, and like I said, hopefully we can use this platform right here to help some youngsters see that like, don't wait till you're 40 years old to figure it out the way I did. You know what I mean? There's opportunities out there. And we just have to believe in ourselves and believe in the process, and we can get this stuff figured out way earlier. And I know this because I'm in here in prison with some youngsters that's like, man, dude, if only I had the vision you have at 25, 26 years old, yeah, you're in prison, yeah, you made some bad choices and you're here, but clearly you figured it out. If I would have had that kind of, fortitude when I was 27 years old, I'd probably be a freaking doctor today. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, it's just a trip. Like I see some of these youngsters. So if we can get through to any of these youngsters out there right now, and just let them know that whatever they're going through, whatever life's bringing them, whether it's drug addicted parents, whether it's poverty, whether it's a gang infested neighborhood, whether it's learning disabilities, whether it's physical abuse, whether it's sexual abuse, whatever it is, insecurities, like all that stuff. There's a cure for all that. You know what I mean? And just know that there's people here willing to help. And there's people who care. I like you said, I have a passion for this stuff because I understand it. I can empathize. I have actual remorse for the life that I've lived. I've dealt with the shame, and I have this understanding now of human life, and I've reconnected with humanity. So I am absolutely passionate about it because, I can look back to that kid that I was and just like, man, if only I had somebody like me at that point in time to pull me out of that abyss, So I'm definitely passionate about it, and I'd love to help anybody that I can, And like I said, in no way, shape, or form do I hope to glorify this lifestyle, just like I don't hope to badmouth it. You know what I mean? It was the lifestyle that was given to me, and I lived it for as long as I could, and again, it was a coping mechanism for me, but I understand now there's always another option. That's kind of what I hope that we can impart on some of these youngsters and even some of these grown-ups. Like I said, I didn't start figuring it out till I was 40 years old,
Hey Jesse, well, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it just because I have my daughter right here. She's on my head right now. She's on my bumper, talking about when I'm gonna get off the phone already.
That's right.
She's like, Papa,
That's
talk
right.
too much. Papa, talk.
That's good shit, though, dog. That's what it's all about, right there. You got to get there and spend some time with them, dog. That's a blessing right there, and I'm proud of you, dog, because like I said, I missed all those best times of my daughter's life. So it's just awesome that you're able to be there, and do what you do, dog. I appreciate you giving us this platform. Get out there and do what daddies do. Papa's on the phone too much.
Yeah, no, yeah, I try, but it's kind of hard, juggling this and juggling my family life. But I do appreciate, my wife. She's a huge support, and if it wasn't for her, supporting what I'm doing and actually being on board, then I wouldn't be able to do this, because when I'm here on these calls, she's with my daughter, and my daughter, she requires a lot of attention. We gotta be running around.
Right.
You want to go to school?
Yeah, that's right. You already know that the women truly is the better half, man. We can't get that twisted.
Yeah. My wife, she's a catch. Like I'm really fortunate, to have her on my side, and if it wasn't for her, then we wouldn't be in the situation we are right now, and and actually be able to help, or offer people some help,
Right.
So yeah, but you know what? Like
Awesome.
I definitely want you to come back, and we do have to do some lives, and not necessarily about prison. We could pretty much talk about anything, because there's other stuff going on in the world besides prison, and I'm pretty sure you'll have a different angle that you could bring and help people or spark a thought in people's minds, to think a little bit differently.
Absolutely. Anytime. You already know. You know where I'm at. Hit me up. If anybody hits you up and they need to talk, send them my way. And for sure, hit me up. Let me know when you got free time, and we could pick this back up and figure out a topic and build from there.
Okay, perfect. Well, I appreciate you, you sharing with us your story, your journey. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and enjoy the rest of your night, because I'm pretty sure you either have to get ready for tomorrow, or I know it's kind of late because you normally I know you go to sleep a little bit earlier because you do wake up really early.
That's right. You got to get this physical geography homework done. This is madness. All right, brother. You have a good night over there, man. My blessings to you and your family. Huh? Thank you.
Okay, you as well. Dile adiós, mamá. Dile buenas noches.
Bye. Good night.
Bye, mija. Buenas noches.
All right, then, Jesse, man. Have a good night.
All right.